Hello and welcome back to a Squirrel Plays. Today we're getting back into ttrpg mechanics and we'll be talking about HP, also known as hit points or health points or horsepower, I guess, if that's your line of work. The thing that determines your amount of health. Everything has HP, even you and I. Little did you know I only have 1 HP because I'm allergic to pain. If you've been around this part of the internet before, you probably already know that I don't have the perfect solution for what is the best way to do X, Y, or Z. Instead, we're going to take a look at a few different ways you can handle HP at your table while weighing some pros and cons of each to figure out what works best for you and your group. And this came from an idea I had a while back for a video that was going to be what is difficulty, but it kept bleeding between that and what is fun, which wasn't the end of the world, but I was tackling a few different concepts and I thought, you know what, these should be standalone topics, and believe it or not, that's how we got the inventory video I did a little while back. Inventory was just one of the concepts of working with difficulty and keeping things fun. So today it's HP, and I think what we'll do is look at 3 general ways to deal with it. These probably aren't the universally correct terms for them, but that's why I like to define these things at the beginning of the video. That way, even if I'm using the wrong term, we'll all hopefully be on the same page. And the first one would be what I'm going to call HP pools, which is how D&D 5e handles it, as well as many video games. You and NPCs have a pool of hit points that can be any assortment of numbers, 23, 107, 613, or even 1301. Doesn't matter what the number is. It can be flavored as your resistance to pain, your ability to keep pushing forward, energy, armor, whatever. Whenever it reaches 0, you go down one way or the other, be it simply unconscious or completely dead. With HP pools, attacks will do various amounts of damage, gradually chipping away at those pools with varying degrees of success. The second type is hits and strikes. If you've played Easy D6 before, then you might be more familiar with calling it strikes, but just hits is what I'm used to. This is similar to HP pools in the sense that, yes, you do have a number to keep track of, but there's 2 main differences. 1, it's a much smaller number, and 2, typically 1 hit equals 1 point of health instead of a weapon doing anywhere between 5 to 13 points of damage or whatever the case may be. You can think of it more as a pass or fail system. Either you hit the guy or you didn't. And the third type is what we'll call narrative damage, and if you're wondering what the heck that is, you'll just have to stick around and see what in the world I'm talking about. Honestly, I am not a big fan of this one, or at least not in TTRPGs. Love it in video games so long as it's not bloated to Kingdom Come. And that's because, in my humble little squirrely opinion, it tends to bog things down. It's a drag, man, and if you're the GM, well, it can be kind of hard to keep up with sometimes. And you know what? I'm not the only one that thinks that. There's loads of videos on YouTube dedicated to helping you speed up your combat in 5th edition, which uses HP pools. And one tip I see fairly regularly is throwing those pools out the window one way or the other. Some say to give your monsters HP in increments of 5 and just round the damage, essentially just using hits and strikes. Some say to ignore damage completely on weaker enemies and just go with what feels right, and so forth and so on. My point is, these HP pools are time-consuming and slow. It might take the players 3 whole turns to kill a little goblin because their damage all rolled low. There's nothing better than rolling a critical hit only to then roll the minimal damage. It's also not a lot of fun wasting your entire turn finishing off a goblin that was setting at a mere 1 HP after the last guy's attack. But why, you may ask, does it work for video games and not TTRPGs? And my theory here is that you have something to do in video games while whittling that HP down. See, in a TTRPG, for the most part, you attack, the bad guy attacks, you attack, the bad guy attacks, rinse and repeat until somebody hits 0. And Lord have mercy on your GM trying to keep things interesting while you're both rolling low damage and barely hurting one another. Maybe I'm just not very good at it, but I feel like you can only narrate hitting the dragon with your sword in so many different ways before you finally hit the point of, yep, you hit him. Next roll, please. You leap into the air and drive your sword deep as possible into the dragon's leg. You do 12 points of damage, and the dragon has about 1,200 hit points, so let's do some basic math. Players average 15 points of damage per roll. Dragon has 1,200 points of health. And you can correct me if my math is wrong, but that will come out to way too dang long. Now look at a video game where you have a lengthy fight with a dragon. What else is happening? Depending on the game, instead of just hoping the dragon doesn't hit you because of a bad roll, you're actively going to be running and dodging and climbing and crawling out of the way. Even when you're not swinging your sword, you are actively engaged in the game and with this creature and trying to survive. You have something to do from the beginning of the fight all the way to the end. Buildings and other assorted terrain pieces can also be getting destroyed in the process, and of course that's always fun to watch. In the video game world, you also have a bit more control over the music. If the boss gets down to low health and he changes his form, time to pull out some chanting. Technically, you can mess around with the music in your tabletop, but let's be real, it doesn't work as smoothly, but it is nice. Now, what might be a good thing about HP pools? Positive, tactile, or tangible feedback, whichever word you want to go with. When you do happen to roll high on your damage, or expend a high-level spell slot, or use up a rare item, it is nice to see those big numbers. If you're on a VTT and can see the enemy health bar, it's rewarding to see it drop by a significant amount. Even if you're at the table with minis and paper, you know you did a significant amount of damage. You can take joy in the fact your fireball did 100 points more damage than the last guy's attack and ignore the fact that the dragon has 900,000 more HP to go. And you know what? That's totally worth it to some people. Another positive is that these types of HP pools allow for easier ways to upgrade equipment. A player can spend some gold on upgrading their sword, making it do a few more points of damage. Not a huge change, but it's something to spend money on, and it allows them to feel that much stronger, and something that can be worked on in steps for a higher end result. In a similar vein, it also lets you do things like give players more healing loot to acquire. Scatter a handful of small health potions across the dungeon that only heal a handful of HP, and you get the joy of finding something without giving the players too much. Just a little something something to heal those boo-boos and keep you moving forward. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and see if I can't guess something. We'll see how very much wrong I am. Old Grognard, yes you, I know you're watching this. I'm gonna guess you're a fan of HP pools but like to keep them on the smaller side and not the bloated mess that it's become with 5e. Am I right or am I wrong? If clicking that like and subscribe button is wrong, then baby I don't want to be right. Again, if you've played EZD6, you'll be familiar with this one. You either hit the target or you don't. There's no range of damage unless you have multiple attacks or something similar. Your damage is worth the same amount each time as is the enemy's minus critical hits. And while that might seem a little bit boring on the surface, here's the trick. You don't have many hits to spare. That means each hit you take is devastating. It's scary. It gets intense. Or at least it does in EZD6 because you only have 3 strikes each. Other games may be different. Like mine, you get 3 hits, but there's ways to give your character more than that, but that's just a teaser for later. Though it is in the Discord for now if you'd like to check it out. Anyway, pros and cons. I'm going to put intensity under both because you know what? Some people may or may not like that. I enjoy it, but it can kind of stress other folks out. Some like that cushion that HP pools provide. Easy to keep up with and track, definitely a pro, and that brings us to the next positive here, which is faster combat. If you recall, I had a video a while back where I compared the speed of a fight in 5e and EZD6. The 5e fight took about 44 minutes, and then the same fight in EZD6 took about 15 minutes. Now, was all that because of the difference in HP and how it's handled? No, of course not. But it did certainly help speed things along and made for easier, and dare I say it, more enjoyable narration. If the goblin only has 2 hits, you can flavor the first one and say you destroyed his entire shield, or maybe you even lopped off his whole arm or something. Chip damage is not a thing with this mechanic, and I have no idea whether you would call that a positive or a negative, so I guess I'll just put that up here on its own. Now, what about some negatives? Well, I have one for you. Remember what I said about HP pools allowing you to do things like modify equipment with a simple +1, 2, or 3? Well, you can't really do that with hits and strikes. If you made your weapon do +1 damage, that would be pretty significant. And you run into the same type of thing when it comes to your healing potions. If you only have 3 strikes, then your healing potion can either heal for 1 or 2, right? If you need it healed for 3, I got bad news for you, boyo. Now, this is not at all to say you can't make a variety of special equipment and healing supplies. It just takes a little more creative work and leans a bit more into the roleplay side of things. And for some people, like me, that's great. But, and I can't believe I'm saying this, in the defense of something like 5e...
So, which we'll go through some of that stuff, but...
What? Scrat's making fun of 5e again. Skull.
Wow.
Some people would rather have those hard numbers to work with, and that's fine. It's a game. You're supposed to do what's enjoyable to you, and if that's crunching a bunch of numbers, then whip out your best calculator, you nerd, and get to it. But what if there were no numbers? If you're a barbarian swinging your axe at the dragon, what does it actually do if it hits? Does it chop off a toe? Does it break some claws, cripple a wing? Or maybe it busts a bunch of those armored scales on its side and makes it easier for others to hit him. The rogue threw a dagger and landed a crit? Well, congratulations, you just took out one of the dragon's eyeballs. I've only done this a couple times, but let me tell you what I found out. It really shines when fighting boss enemies. The bigger the creature, the better. That is, if you can keep track of all the wounds and how many dragon toes you've cut off. Look, nobody said a dragon couldn't have a third thumb, okay? But more seriously, it is pretty great to see every hit do something narratively instead of just making the numbers go down, because now each hit, or at least it should, affect how the enemy moves and acts. As for regular common enemies, I didn't see too much difference between it and the hits and strikes approach, and that might be just because of the way I do things. My common enemies usually only have about 2 strikes anyway, so with narrative damage, you're kind of on the same level. Your first hit on the goblin might destroy a shield or knock the weapon out of his hand, maybe break some of its armor and expose him, or maybe that first hit just finds the mark and either drops him then and there or wounds him, letting him get at least one more attack in before another player finishes him off. That said, while you can technically apply the same logic to the players, I will admit that you'll probably have an easier time if you make them keep their numbers. I'd go with the hits and strikes approach not only for simplicity, but to help add to the intensity. And when it comes to items, equipment, obviously you can't exactly make a sword of stabbing +1, but you do still have plenty of room to add magical and improved weapons since it's all narrative anyway. I would imagine a fire sword would be far more useful this way in the sense it could properly set things on fire instead of just adding a few extra points of damage. The Master Sword from Zelda could vaporize enemies the GM decides are of an evil nature. A Paladin's Holy Shield could make the undead cower in fear. The necrotic touch of a Necromancer could rout the sword arm of an adventurer, forever crippling them until they find a very special healing potion, or an ancient healer, or some magical water source. Honestly, with this kind of approach, I find it a lot easier to make things this way because I'm not beholden to a set of rules where I have to worry about things getting abused or min-maxed. And I think I brought this up in my hard and soft magic video because it also came up in a chat with the Interplanar Crossroads. Some people, like myself, work better with this kind of freedom because the rules can really bog them down for one reason or another. On the flip side, some people work better when they have a rule set to adhere to. It takes a certain type of creativity to come up with stuff that functions within the parameters of the game's rules. And that's a type of creativity that I struggle with. Honestly, it amazes me with what some of you come up with and how well it functions within the rules. Pretty cool stuff. And really, I'm going to pull the plug there before I get too far off into the weeds here, so I'll just say that you should try this way out at least once if you can. You might decide it's pretty fun tossing all those numbers to the side and not worrying about it. Or you might find out you're a numbers guy, who knows? Also, there's nothing saying you can't combine some of these approaches to HP and make a hybrid system. That's how I handled my last 5e campaign to make things easier on my end, and the players never even noticed. Now, shout out time. Today's shout out goes to Soapy Cilantro. He dropped by recently on one of my older shorts, and I got a pretty good chuckle out of their username. I'm one of those people who think cilantro tastes straight up like dish soap. Apparently, I am a cilantrophobe, according to this. Anyway, that's all, ladies and gentlemen. Tell me in the comments below what your preferred approach is and why. Do you like massive HP pools? Do you prefer simplicity? Do you have an entirely different approach to HP? Does your cilantro taste like soap?